All right, let's dive into one of the most fascinating mysteries of the human body, superagers. Now, these are people in their 80s, 90s, or even older, but their minds, their memories are as sharp as someone decades younger. So how do they do it? Is it their genes, their lifestyle, or is something else going on entirely? Today, we are going to unpack the secrets of a brain that just refuses to get old. I think for most of us, there's this little fear that comes with getting older, the fear of losing our memories, right? You misplaced your keys, you forget a name, and you can't help but wonder, is this the beginning of the end? It feels like it's just an unavoidable part of life. But what if it's not? What if there's a group of people out there who hold the key, the actual biological blueprint to sidestepping that decline? So let's get specific. What exactly is a superager? Now, this isn't just a nice little nickname for someone with a good memory. It's a real clinical term coined by researchers at Northwestern University. And the bar is high. To qualify, you have to be over 80 years old, and your memory has to be just as good or even better than the average person in their 50s or 60s. To really understand what that means, let's look at the data. In a standard memory test, you get a list of 15 words. After a little while, you're asked to recall as many as you can. A typical 80-year-old might remember about 5, but a superager, they remember 9 or more. They're performing at the level of someone 30 years younger. We're not talking about a small difference here. That is a massive cognitive gap. This is where things get really wild. Dr. Sandra Weintraub, who's one of the lead researchers on this, said this, and it just hits you. It's not just about their test scores. The truly earth-shattering discovery has happened when they started looking inside the superager brain. So that's exactly where we're going next. All right, so what is so special about a superager's brain? What's going on under the hood? The clues, it turns out, are hidden right there in the physical structure, in the very cells of the brain itself. Let's look past the test scores and get into the hardware that powers these incredible minds. Okay, check this out. It's totally normal for our brains to shrink a little bit as we get older. But for superagers, that process is happening in super slow motion. On average, their peers lose about 2.24% of their brain volume every year. Superagers, they lose only about 1.06%. That's less than half the rate. Their brains are literally staying physically younger for longer. And it's not just about slowing down decay. In some ways, their brains are just built better. The cerebral cortex, that's the wrinkly outer layer of the brain, is thicker. And one area in particular, the anterior cingulate cortex, is a real superstar. This region is crucial for attention, for motivation, for pushing through difficult tasks. And in superagers, it's often thicker than it is in healthy 50-year-olds. Now, we're going to zoom in even further, all the way down to the cellular level. I want to introduce you to a very special type of brain cell, the von Economo or VNE for short. You can think of these as the brain's social superconductors. They're big, they're super fast, and they're deeply connected to our social intuition, our empathy, basically our gut feelings about other people. So, why are we talking about these specific cells? Well, here's the kicker. When researchers looked at the brains of superagers, they found that in that same brain region, the anterior cingulate cortex, they had 4 to 5 times more of these special social neurons than the average 80-year-old. 4 to 5 times. That is a staggering biological advantage. So, a brain that shrinks slower, is thicker in key areas, and is packed with special cells. Where does all that come from? Well, you've probably guessed it. A big part of the story starts in their genes. It seems superagers are born with a protective genetic blueprint that gives them a major head start. Now, aging is complex. A ton of genes are involved. But 2 really stand out from the crowd in this research. The first one is called APOE, which you might have heard of because of its huge role in Alzheimer's disease. And the second one is FOXO3, which is basically like a master control switch for healthy aging deep inside our cells. Let's start with APOE. Think of this gene as having different flavors. One version, called epsilon-4, is the big bad one. It dramatically increases your risk for Alzheimer's. Well, superagers almost never have this version. Instead, they're much more likely to carry a protective variant, epsilon-2, which acts like a biological shield, helping the brain clear out toxic gunk before it can build up. And then there's FOXO3. This gene is amazing. Imagine it's your body's top-notch maintenance crew. It's in charge of managing stress, fighting off damage, and keeping your stem cells healthy and ready to go. Having the longevity version of this gene is like giving that maintenance crew a massive upgrade. It helps slow down the entire aging process, right from the microscopic level. So, we've got the brain structure, we've got the protective genes, but what about lifestyle? You'd think that's the final piece of the puzzle, right? Well, researchers looked at everything: diet, exercise, education, career, and they couldn't find a consistent pattern. Some superagers ate super healthy, others loved their junk food. But there was one trait that kept showing up again and again. And what was it? It wasn't about what they ate or how much they exercised. It was about who they were with. Over and over, superagers reported having strong, positive, high-quality relationships. They tend to be outgoing, deeply engaged with their friends and family. You might even call them social butterflies. And this is where all the puzzle pieces suddenly click together. Because that social personality, it isn't just a coincidence. It has a clear biological signature that we've already seen. Remember those special social neurons we talked about? The von Economo neurons? That incredible density, 4 to 5 times the normal amount, is the neural hardware that powers their social lives. It's this beautiful feedback loop. Their brains are literally wired for social connection. And by living a socially active life, they keep those brain circuits strong and healthy. It's biology and behavior working together perfectly. So, let's put it all together. What can we really learn from these incredible people? The researchers have boiled all these findings down into 2 main strategies that the superager brain uses to stay young. And it all comes down to 2 simple words: resistance and resilience. Okay, so there are 2 ways to build a superager brain. The first path is resistance. Think of the brain as an impenetrable fortress. It just stops the bad stuff, those toxic proteins linked to Alzheimer's, from ever building up in the first place. But the second path is resilience. Think of this brain as a heavy-duty shock absorber. The toxic proteins might get in, but the brain is so tough that it just doesn't care. It functions perfectly anyway. And this right here really shows you the power of resilience. On the left, you have a typical brain that has the plaques and tangles of Alzheimer's, and that leads to cognitive decline. But look at the right. That is a resilient superager brain. It has the exact same amount of those toxic proteins, but the person's memory is totally fine. Their brain has somehow neutralized the threat that would cripple a normal brain. It's absolutely incredible. So, in the end, there's no single magic bullet. The secret to superaging is a powerful combination, a perfect storm really, of having the right genes, a uniquely tough brain structure, and a rich, socially connected life. Each part supports the others, creating this amazing upward spiral of brain health. What superagers really give us, more than anything, is hope. They are living proof that severe memory loss is not an inevitable part of getting older. They give us a roadmap. And while, sure, we can't change our genes, their story screams one lesson loud and clear: the power of social connection for brain health. So it leaves us with a question. What's one thing you can do today to strengthen your own social roadmap?